The Met Police have launched a manhunt after a suspected acid attack took place at the Westminster Academy School in central London yesterday. A home security, Mark White, is here with details. Mark, it's so shocking that this is related to a school setting and that the victims are children. What do we know?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely sickening and an indication, if ever we needed it, about just how violent crime in particular is, a real issue now particularly affecting young people. And this was just before 4:45 in the evening yesterday, when police were waved down by staff at Westminster Academy in West London, and they found a number of injured people, including the most seriously injured, a 14-year-old schoolgirl who we understand has suffered potentially life-changing injuries, still in hospital, being treated. A 16-year-old boy still in hospital less seriously injured, and a 27-year-old woman who was also injured. In addition, two police officers who were first on the scene were reporting feeling sick and were admitted to hospital as a precaution as well. At this hour, though, the suspect or suspects involved in this attack are still at large, so a significant operation to try and find those individuals or individual involved.
Do we know anything about this particular school, Mark? It's not in Hill area, isn't it? Looks like a big comprehensive.
Yeah, I mean, and like every school in an inner city in the country, they've got their issues. By and large, it's safe, of course, for school children to go to school, but increasingly they are at risk from potentially violent incidents, because you now have a culture where it seems almost the norm for some children to walk about with knives, even guns, God forbid, but also with acid. There was a very significant increase in acid attacks last year. A Freedom of Information request that was carried out by the Acid Survivors organization, Acid Survivors International, showed that the number of acid attacks in the UK rose from 700 in 2022 to last year going up to 1244, and those are only the ones being reported. They believe it's being under-reported, and Police Scotland didn't respond to this Freedom of Information request as well, so it's likely to be significantly higher than that. It is a real concern that people think not only nothing of carrying knives, but also taking with them regularly bottles of corrosive substances, and that can be alkali-type substances or acid substances in this particular incident. And how do you guard against it? They household products that we see, under the kitchen.
Terrifying as a mom, particularly as a mother of daughters. I find this so terrifying. We've imported this, Mark. Let's not skirt around the issue. We've imported this pernicious tradition from countries in which religion plays a part in wanting to shame women and girls, and some fundamental ist religions in which girls and women, young women in these countries, can be attacked with acid because it's to shame them, particularly in instances of infidelity, the sort of issues actually in terms of who's going out with who affects teenagers. And in a way, I've almost been wondering when this was going to happen, when I was seeing these sorts of crimes with amongst the adults communities, thinking at some point this is going to end up being on the doorstep of teenagers, and that's precisely what's happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In particular, the Asian subcontinent, it is a big issue of acid attacks, honor revenge attacks, as you say, for infidelity or whatever perceived injustice or crime some woman is alleged to have done by the male who, you're right, throw acid over them because they want to get the revenge, disfigure this poor individual for life. And that has happened increasingly amongst a certain subset in the UK as well. And of course, we remember just back to the beginning of this year in January, in that horrific attack in Clapham in South London, where the woman and her 2 children had alkali substance thrown over them by Abdul Adiyai, who later jumped in the Thames and killed himself, saved us the cost of a trial involved in that. But that's the kind of thing you're talking about, and you're right, that filters down to street level where kids just think they can do the same kind of thing, carry these substances.
It's very depressing, Mark. So there's a manhunt underway. There is no suspects in custody, yet here in London the Met Police have launched a manhunt after a suspected acid attack took place at the Westminster Academy School in central London yesterday. 2 pupils and 1 teacher are thought to be among the victims, with the injuries of a 14-year-old girl described as life-changing. We're joining us now is former police officer Peter Williams. Good morning, Peter. We've seen these attacks become more and more common in the last few years in the UK, often imported from cultures in which religions wish to punish, or those people who are following those religions wish to punish particularly women from what might be seen as infidelity, and these sort of honor crimes has no place on British streets. How surprising are you to hear this happening in a school setting?
Well, obviously it's very worrying, and yes, you're right to point out that some years ago there was a rise in these attacks, but it was concentrated in a Pacific area, mainly London, and in the past few years, actually the actual numbers happily have sort of decreased. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the fact that there was legislation passed in 2019 that in certain circumstances it was illegal to possess this sort of material, but it's very akin to me to what we hear with sort of knife crime, and it's very much, I would say, a localized issue. I would anticipate in this particular case there will be an early arrest given the circumstances, public area, CCTV, all those sorts of things, and it indicates to me that really if we can re-establish our neighborhood policing and links with the community, which would include schools, which include shops and all those outlets that sell this type of material, we can gather our intelligence and we can start to make inroads in these areas, i.e. knife crime, and in the case what we're talking about, which appears to be an ASSD attack. Now I fully accept your argument that this may well be domestically motivated, and we'll have to wait and see what materializes, but I do think there's a lot that the police with other partners, particularly the local authorities, can do in order to restrict or control the sale and the possession of these sort of obnoxious fluids such as acid attacks, thereby preventing them further in the future. So I think there's work to be done. We don't want to see anything like this at all, but it does appear to me from what I've researched that it is a particularly localized problem.
Just help me understand this. We know from the police, I've got the Met Police statement here, that one victim is a 16-year-old boy. Injuries are not life-threatening. Victim to 27-year-old woman conditionally is not life-threatening. Possibly a teacher, presumably, that came to the aid. Victim 3, a 14-year-old girl whose injuries may be potentially life-changing, and we know that the police haven't arrested anybody at the moment. Why would they not have given us a description of the suspect at this stage? Because there are people messaging us on the inbox saying, well, I live in that area. Who am I looking for? Who should I be keeping an eye out for? Why would they not give a description?
Well, I think that may well follow. We're probably in the early stages of an investigation. We're dealing with a potentially a very serious offense here. Seriously, at least one of inflicting grievous bodily harm, which is contrary to Section 18 of the Offense Against the Person Act, which carries life in prison, and so it's not something that we can do lightly, and it's important that we gather the evidence initially, and then if it's deemed necessary or in fact it's going to progress the investigation, alert the public, then go to perhaps a press release. But it's also important we got to create a balance here, that we don't create a panic in the community where we sort of imply that there's somebody at large who's going around doing this sort of thing. So the police have got they've got a balancing act, they've got a management decision to make in order to what information they release and how they actually do release that. Is this a line of inquiry? Is it going to progress the investigation further, and is it going to lead to further evidence, which of course leads to an arrest and also a successful prosecution? So it's not just as easy as that, where it's a case of look, we'll just go out to the public and say this happened. What do we know? We need to gather the facts, and I suspect that that's exactly what the Metropolitan Police are doing now. Thanks for watching this video.